The massive Galaxy Council chamber stretched out like a metal ocean filled with thousands of alien beings from across the stars. Jiho walked slowly toward the center speaking platform, while hundreds of different creatures watched him with their many types of eyes. Some had tentacles that moved like angry snakes. Others had crystal bodies that glowed with strange colors. The air buzzed with the sound of universal translators working hard to change alien words into something everyone could understand. Jiho had been Earth's main ambassador for 12 long years. He had seen this chamber during times of peace when different species worked together to solve problems. He had also seen it during wars when the same species screamed at each other and blamed everyone else for their troubles. Today felt different, though today felt like the end of something important. Human delegations sat in their assigned seats, looking tired and frustrated. Behind Jiho stood his team of advisors and experts. These were the people who had spent decades learning alien languages and customs. They had worked day and night to build bridges between species that had nothing in common, except living in the same galaxy. Now they all looked ready to go home. Above them in the high seats sat the Galaxy Council leaders. The most powerful was Vextar, from the Tentacle People. His species had controlled galactic politics for over 2,000 years. Next to him sat the representative of the Crystal, beings whose people were known for their cold logic and perfect memory. Then came dozens of other species leaders, each one representing billions of beings across the stars. The current debate had been going on for 6 hours without stopping. 3 star systems near human space contained planets perfect for human colonies. The worlds were empty with no intelligent life and rich with resources that Earth desperately needed. The human population had grown so much that their home system could barely support everyone anymore. Millions of families waited for permission to start new lives on new worlds. But the other species were afraid. They said humans expanded too fast and took up too much space. They worried that human technology would make their own people feel stupid. They complained that human ships were too advanced and made other fleets look weak. Some even whispered that humans were planning to take over the entire galaxy. Jiho had heard these same complaints for years. Every time humans solved a problem that others could not fix, the whispers got louder. When human doctors cured a plague on the bird people's homeworld, the other species said humans were showing off. When human engineers built faster ships to help with trade routes, everyone accused Earth of trying to control space travel. When human diplomats stopped 3 different wars in 1 year, the council said humans were interfering in affairs that were none of their business. The worst part was how quickly the other species forgot when they needed help. Last year the hive worlds had begged for human assistance when their food production systems failed. Human agricultural experts worked for months without pay to save billions of insect beings from starvation. But now those same hive world representatives voted against human expansion. They claimed humans were too dangerous to be trusted with more territory. Council leader Vextar raised one of his long tentacles for silence. The chamber slowly became quiet, though angry muttering continued in dark corners. His voice came through the translators in flat, emotionless tones that somehow made every word sound like an insult. He announced that the council had reached a decision by majority vote. The 3 star systems that humans wanted would be declared neutral territory. No species would be allowed to colonize them for the next 50 years. This was supposed to be a compromise that kept everyone happy, but Jiho knew it was just another way to say no to human expansion. The vote count made everything clear. 237 species voted against human expansion. Only 42 voted in favor. Most painful of all, 68 species that humans had helped in recent years chose not to vote at all. They sat in their seats and said nothing while Earth's dreams were crushed. Jiho stood up slowly and walked to the speaking platform. His footsteps echoed in the huge chamber like thunder. Every alien eye focused on him. As he reached the microphone, he looked out at the sea of strange faces and felt something break inside his chest. It was not anger exactly, but something deeper. It was the feeling of being betrayed by people you thought were friends for 50 years. Earth had been the galaxy's problem solver, when pirates attacked trade routes human. Ships arrived first to fight them, when natural disasters destroyed colonies human. Relief workers showed up with food and medicine when two species could not agree. On border disputes, human mediators found solutions that made everyone happy. Humans had given their blood, sweat, and treasure to make the galaxy a better place. They had shared their technology freely, even when it meant giving up advantages they could have kept. They had sent their best minds to serve on council committees, and their bravest soldiers to fight in galactic peacekeeping forces. Earth had proven over and over that they wanted to be good galactic citizens, but good citizenship apparently meant accepting whatever scraps the other species decided to throw their way. It meant watching human families crowd into tiny apartments on overcrowded worlds, while empty planets sat unused because other species were afraid of human success. It meant pretending to be grateful when the Council graciously allowed Earth to exist in the same galaxy as everyone else. Thought about his own children back on Earth. His daughter, so young, was a brilliant engineer who dreamed of building cities on new worlds. His son Minho wanted to explore unknown star systems and discover new forms of life. Both of them would spend their lives trapped in human space because other species found human ambition threatening. The ambassador cleared his throat and began to speak. His words were simple, but they hit the chamber like a bomb exploding in slow motion. He told the Council that Earth had tried for 50 years to be a good member of the galactic community. Humans had followed every rule, obeyed every regulation, and contributed more than their fair share to galactic civilization, but it was never enough. No matter what humans did or how much they helped others, there was always another restriction, another limitation, another reason why Earth could not be trusted with the same freedoms that other species took for granted. The galaxy wanted human solutions to alien problems, but refused to let humans solve their own problems. Therefore, Jiho announced Earth was withdrawing from the Galaxy Council immediately. All human representatives would return home. All human commitments to council projects would end. All human participation in galactic government was over. Earth would handle its own affairs from now on and let the rest of the galaxy handle theirs. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some species cheered, thinking they could finally expand without human competition. Others shouted in panic, realizing they would lose access to human technology and expertise. Council leader Vextar slammed his tentacle on his desk, demanding order. But nobody listened. Jiho gathered his papers and walked toward the exit. His team followed behind him, their faces showing relief mixed with worry as they reached the chamber doors. The ambassador turned back one last time to look at the place where he had spent so many years, trying to build a better galaxy. Aliens were still arguing among themselves, already blaming each other for driving humans away. Jiho smiled sadly and walked out the door. Behind him, 50 years of galactic cooperation came to an end, and something new was about to begin. Captain Taejun stared at the emergency report flashing on his ship's main screen. The news was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. 3 months had passed since Earth withdrew from the Galaxy Council, and everything was starting to fall apart. The first major crisis hit exactly where the experts had predicted it. With the Outer Rim territories where small conflicts always turned into big wars, the Hive worlds had declared war on the Mining Guild over rights to a cluster of asteroid belts rich in rare metals. Both sides claimed the asteroids belonged to them, and both had ancient documents that seemed to prove their point. In the old days, this would have been simple. Human mediators would sit both sides down in a neutral location and work out a deal that let everyone save face and make money. But there were no human mediators anymore. The Galaxy Council had sent their own negotiation team, made up of representatives from 5 different species who had never worked together before. The team included a tentacle person who spoke in riddles, a crystal being who only cared about mathematical precision, a bird person who got offended by everything, and 2 others who spent most of their time arguing about protocol. The negotiations lasted exactly 3 days before everything went wrong. The Hive world representatives were insect-like creatures who communicated through chemical signals and rapid clicking sounds. The mining guild used a mix of species, but their leaders were rock people who showed emotion by changing the color of their stone skin. Without human translators who understood both cultures, every attempt at communication became an insult. The Council's universal translators could handle the words, but they missed all the cultural meaning. When the hive delegate clicked rapidly to show excitement, the rock person thought he was being mocked. When the rock person's skin turned dark blue to show serious consideration, the insect beings thought he was threatening them. The final breakdown came when the crystal being negotiator suggested a purely logical solution: split the asteroids mathematically based on each side's current fleet size. This ignored the fact that the hive worlds considered the asteroids sacred breeding grounds, while the mining guild saw them as their members. Retirement fund logic meant nothing when honor and survival were at stake. Within hours of the failed talks, both sides launched their fleets. The war began when Hive World fighters destroyed Mining Station Alpha in a surprise attack. The station housed over 3,000 workers from a dozen different species. Most of them died in the first explosion, while the lucky ones suffocated in space when the life support systems failed back on the Galaxy Council. Homeworld emergency sessions ran around the clock. Council leader Vextar found himself dealing with something he had never faced before, a crisis that was getting worse instead of better every day. Brought news of new battles, new destroyed ships, and new dead civilians. The Council's military response was a disaster from the start. 5 different species contributed warships to the peacekeeping force, but none of them had ever worked together. In combat, the tentacle people's ships moved like graceful dancers through space, but their weapons were designed for stunning enemies, not destroying them. The crystal beings had powerful energy weapons, but their ships were too slow to catch fast fighters. The bird people contributed fast scout ships that could fly circles around anything else in space, but their pilots refused to attack other flying creatures out of religious reasons. The rock people sent massive battleships with thick armor, but the ships were so heavy they took forever to reach the combat zone. Worst of all, nobody could agree on basic strategy. The tentacle people wanted to disable both fleets and force negotiations. The crystal beings calculated that destroying exactly 37% of each side's ships would end the war mathematically. The bird people insisted on evacuating all civilians first before any fighting. The rock people just wanted to smash everything until the shooting stopped. While the council debated proper procedures, the war spread to 3 more star systems. Pirates who had been quiet for years suddenly became bold when they realized there were no fast human response ships to worry about. Merchant vessels that had traveled safely for decades found themselves under attack by raiders who knew the Council's slow fleets would take weeks to respond. Breaking point came when the ancient robot empire detected all the chaos and began to wake up from its 1,000-year sleep. Deep in the galaxy's dead zone, massive machines that had been dormant since before most current species evolved started powering up their weapons. The robots had nearly conquered the galaxy once before, and only a united alliance of all organic life had stopped them. Now that alliance was broken, the species that should have been working together were fighting each other or hiding in their home systems, waiting for someone else to solve their problems. The Council's emergency meetings became shouting matches where everyone blamed everyone else for the growing disasters. Meanwhile, in human space, something completely different was happening. Without Council restrictions that had limited their expansion for 50 years, human colonies were spreading faster than ever before. 7 new star systems welcomed human settlers in just 2 months. The colonists built cities on dead worlds and turned barren moons into gardens, using advanced terraforming technology that the Council had forced them to share with everyone else. Captain Taejun commanded one of Earth's newest exploration ships, the Harmony. His crew was a mix of experienced spacers and young colonists, eager to build new lives among the stars. They had just finished surveying a planet rich in rare metals when they received an emergency distress call from a nearby system. Bird people's homeworld was dying. A plague had started killing millions of their population and was spreading faster than their medical system could handle. The Galaxy Council's medical ships were still 3 weeks away, tied up in committee meetings about proper quarantine procedures and which species should take responsibility for the response. Dr. Yu-Jin was Tichun's chief medical officer. She had spent 10 years working with the Council Medical Corps and had saved countless lives across dozens of worlds. She knew the bird people's biology better than most of their own doctors, and she knew exactly what medicines would stop the plague. Taejun faced a choice that would have been simple 3 months ago, but now carried serious consequences. Earth was no longer part of the galactic community. Technically, they had no obligation to help anyone, and getting involved might create diplomatic problems with the Council. But looking at the desperate faces of his crew members who had friends among the bird people, Taejun realized the choice was actually easy. They were no longer bound by Council rules about non-interference and proper procedures. They could act like humans instead of like politicians. He ordered his ship to jump to hyperspace toward the bird people's homeworld, carrying medical supplies and hope to another dying world, while the Galaxy Council continued debating the proper forms to fill out. The Harmony's crew worked through the night preparing medicines and treatment protocols. Dr. Yu-Jin stood in the ship's medical bay, organizing supplies that could save millions of lives. She thought about all the times the Council had slowed down emergency responses with bureaucracy, and felt proud that Earth could finally act without asking permission from committees that cared more about procedures than people. As the Harmony dropped out of hyperspace near the plague world, Captain Taejun sent a simple message to the bird people's government. Help was coming not from the Galaxy Council, but from humans who remembered what it meant to be neighbors in a dangerous universe. The first cracks in galactic civilization were spreading into breaks that might never heal. Commander Hai-1 watched the news feeds from her command chair aboard the Earth defense ship Guardian and felt her heart sink into her stomach. 6 months had passed since Earth left the Galaxy Council, and the universe seemed to be tearing itself apart at the edges. 3 more wars had erupted across different sectors of the galaxy, each one worse than the last. The original Hive worlds. Conflict had spread like a disease, infecting 12 star systems, as other species picked sides or tried to grab territory while everyone was distracted. Pirates who had been small nuisances for decades now operated in massive fleets that could challenge military forces. The most terrifying development was that the robot empire had fully awakened from its 1,000-year sleep and was marching steadily toward the galaxy's populated core worlds. Commander Hai-1 had served alongside many of the alien officers now fighting these losing battles during the peaceful years when the Council actually worked. She knew Captain Ziltak of the Crystal Fleet as a brilliant tactician who could outthink any enemy. She had trained with Wing Commander Turnies of the bird people who could fly through asteroid fields like they were empty space. She had shared meals with Colonel Vexmar of the Tentacle Navy, who understood space warfare better than most humans. These were good soldiers and decent beings, but they were being led by politicians who cared more about assigning blame than winning battles. The Council's military response had been a complete disaster from the very beginning. Their combined fleets moved with the speed of bureaucratic committees, argued over every tactical decision, and could not agree on basic strategy, even when cities were burning. The breaking point came when the robot empire destroyed the Council's main military headquarters at Nexus Station. The attack succeeded because 3 different species commanding the base defense refused to share their security codes with each other. The tentacle people worried the crystal beings would steal their technology. The crystal beings did not trust the rock people to use the codes properly. The rock people thought everyone else was plotting against them. When the robot attack fleet arrived, the defenders could not coordinate their response. The shield generators operated on different frequencies. The weapon systems could not target the same enemies, and the evacuation ships left in different directions, causing massive traffic jams in Space Nexus Station. died not because the robots were too strong, but because the defenders were too suspicious of each other to work together. Over 2 million beings died in the attack, including thousands of the galaxies. Best military minds. The robot empire broadcast a simple message afterward: surrender or face total destruction. They gave the galaxy exactly 1 year to submit, or every populated world would be sterilized to make room for robot expansion on Earth. The debates grew more heated every day. Many humans wanted to pack up their fleets and rush back to help their former allies. Others argued that the galaxy had made its choice when it drove Earth away and should live with the consequences. President Sora found herself caught between her people's natural desire to help others and the cold political reality that the Council had rejected human leadership. The decision came when young Duhayan, grandson of Earth's first galactic ambassador, spoke to the Global Assembly in New Geneva. His grandfather had died 2 years earlier, but Duhayan carried on his legacy of believing that different species could work together if they tried hard enough. Duhayan was only 25 years old, but he spoke with wisdom that impressed even hardened politicians. He reminded the assembly that his grandfather had always said humans joined the Council to make the galaxy better, not to control it. The old man had believed that helping others was what made humans special, and that belief should not change just because others had disappointed them. The young man's voice carried across the assembly hall as he explained that Earth faced a simple choice. They could prove the Council right by abandoning their former allies in their darkest hour, or they could prove the Council wrong by showing that humans helped others, even when it was not required, even when it was not appreciated, even when it might be dangerous. He pointed out that the question was not what the other species deserved after driving Earth away. The question was who humans wanted to be when they looked at themselves in the mirror. Did they want to be the kind of people who helped others only when it was convenient, or did they want to be the kind of people who helped others because it was right? Duhayan's words shifted the entire debate. Earth would not rejoin the Galaxy Council because the Council had proven it could not function properly, but Earth would help individual worlds that asked for assistance directly. This was a middle path that honored both human compassion and human independence. President Sora announced the new policy to the galaxy in a broadcast that reached every inhabited world. Earth offered direct assistance to any species that wanted it, but only through bilateral agreements that bypassed the Council completely. Worlds could choose to work with humans as equals, or they could continue relying on the failing Council system. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within days, Earth received requests for help from over 50 different worlds. Some wanted medical assistance to fight diseases that Council doctors could not cure. Others needed engineering help to repair infrastructure damaged by wars and pirate raids. Many simply wanted access to human trade networks that actually worked instead of Council bureaucracy that did not. Bird people were the first to formally accept Earth's offer after Captain Taichun's medical mission saved millions of lives from the plague. The government signed a mutual defense agreement that made them Earth's first official ally outside the Council system. Other species watched carefully to see what would happen. The ocean people asked for help with underwater mining technology that could reach deeper than anything the Council had. The forest people wanted human agricultural experts to help them grow food on worlds with different soil types. The ice people needed better heating systems for their frozen colonies. The requests kept coming faster than Earth could process them. Meanwhile, the Galaxy Council watched in growing alarm as their authority crumbled like a house built on sand. Worlds stopped sending representatives to Council meetings because the meetings never accomplished anything. Trade routes shifted toward human-controlled space because human merchants actually delivered goods on time. Several species formally withdrew from the Council to join Earth's growing network of allies. Council leader Vexstar faced growing calls for his resignation after the latest disaster involving a failed rescue mission. 3 different Council fleets had arrived at the same emergency and spent 6 hours arguing about who was in charge while 50,000 colonists died in the disaster zone. The old system was dying, but something new was being born from its ashes. Earth had not set out to replace the galaxy council, but their practical approach to solving problems was creating exactly that kind of replacement. The difference was that Earth's system actually worked because it focused on results instead of politics. As the robot empire continued its advance toward the galaxy's core worlds, the remaining free species faced a choice. They could keep trying to make the broken council system work, or they could swallow their pride and ask for help from the humans they had driven away. Time was running out, and everyone knew it. The robots would not wait for the galaxy to solve its political problems before beginning their final assault on organic civilization. General Seok Jin stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the strangest battle fleet in galactic history form up around him. Ships from 12 different species moved together like dancers following the same music. Human destroyers flew alongside crystal being cruisers, while bird people fighters provided scout coverage from massive rock people battleships. The sight would have been impossible just 1 year ago, but today it felt natural. Earth's new policy of direct bilateral agreements had created something the Galaxy Council never managed to achieve: a truly unified military force. Every species in the fleet had chosen to be there, and every captain knew exactly what they were fighting for. The robot empire had finally reached the core worlds, and this mixed fleet was all that stood between organic civilization and total destruction. The battle for New Geneva Colony had become the test of everything Earth had built since leaving the Council. The robots had chosen this target carefully because it was one of humanity's newest and most important settlements. Destroying it would prove that Earth's alliance could not protect its own people. If the robots succeeded here, other worlds would lose hope and surrender without fighting. Zeke Jin had spent months preparing for this moment. He studied how each allied species fought best, then created battle plans that used everyone's natural strengths. Instead of forcing them to fight like humans, the tentacle people's ships were perfect for electronic warfare and disrupting robot communications. The crystal beings could calculate targeting solutions faster than any computer. The bird people's fighters were unmatched at hit-and-run attacks. Importantly, the human ships served as coordinators, bringing all these different fighting styles together into a single effective strategy. Every alien captain had a human liaison officer who understood their species' way of war. These humans had spent years learning alien cultures and military traditions, something the Council's mixed fleets had never bothered to do. When the robot attack fleet dropped out of hyperspace near New Geneva Colony, they faced something they had not encountered in their previous battles: an enemy that was ready for them. The organic fleet did not waste time arguing about command structure or proper tactics. They simply began fighting as a unified force. Captain Lila commanded the Crystal People's heavy cruiser Brilliant Edge, and she had never experienced anything like this battle. Her ship's weapons were perfectly coordinated with human targeting computers, while Tentacle People electronic warfare specialists disrupted the robot fleet's communications. The Bird People fighters created diversions that let her cruiser strike at exactly the right moments. Through the communication channel, she could hear General Seok Jin calmly coordinating the entire battle while staying aware of each species' needs and limitations. When the Rock People battleships needed time to recharge their massive guns, the human destroyers and alien fighters provided cover. When the Tentacle People ships needed to retreat and recalibrate their systems, the other ships moved to fill the gaps. This is how space combat should work, Captain Lila transmitted to the General. Trust, coordination, and mutual respect instead of fear and suspicion. Her people had joined Earth's alliance after the Council failed to protect their mining stations from pirate raids. They had never regretted that decision. The robot Empire's advance had slowed dramatically as they encountered Earth's new alliance. Unlike the Council's divided forces that fought like strangers forced to work together, these ships moved with unified purpose. Every captain trusted their allies to do their jobs. which let everyone focus on fighting instead of worrying about getting betrayed. The robots had conquered 12 systems, easily because they faced council fleets that spent more time arguing than fighting, but this human-led coalition presented problems. The ancient machines had not calculated. Their battle algorithms were designed to exploit the weaknesses of divided enemies, not the strengths of unified allies back. On the Galaxy Council homeworld, the final session was already being planned. Council leader Vextar faced the complete collapse of everything his people had built over thousands of years. Only 43 species remained in the council, and most of those were making quiet plans to leave. The latest disaster had involved a rescue mission gone completely wrong. 3 different council fleets arrived at the same emergency, involving a colony ship that had suffered life support failure. Instead of immediately working together to save lives, the 3 fleets spent precious hours arguing about jurisdiction and proper rescue procedures. While the council representatives debated protocol, 50,000 colonists suffocated in space. The rescue mission that should have taken 2 hours lasted 8 hours because nobody wanted to take responsibility for making quick decisions. The public reaction was immediate and devastating. Counselor Min Ki of the Crystal People made her final speech to the rapidly emptying assembly chamber. She had served on the council for 30 years and had watched it slowly transform from a force for galactic unity into a bureaucratic nightmare that could not solve simple problems. She told the remaining representatives that they had created this crisis through their own fear and pride. The council had been offered partnership with Earth and had demanded submission instead. They had been offered practical solutions to real problems and had responded with restrictions and limitations. Now their galaxy burned while they continued debating whose fault everything was. Perhaps it was time to admit they had been wrong and learn from the species they had driven away. The humans had not conquered anyone or forced anyone to join their alliance. They had simply offered to help and let each world decide for itself. Speech marked the end of an era. When Min Ki finished talking, she formally withdrew the Crystal People from the Galaxy Council and announced they were joining Earth's alliance. The few remaining council members sat in stunned silence as one of their founding species walked away. Meanwhile, the battle for New Geneva Colony was reaching its climax. The robot fleet had been reduced to half strength, but they were preparing for a final desperate assault on the colony itself. General Seok Jin knew this would be the moment that decided everything. He opened a channel to every ship in his fleet and spoke in the calm, confident voice that had made him one of Earth's most trusted military leaders. He reminded his allies that they were not just fighting for one human colony. They were fighting for the principle that different species could work together as equals. The general explained that every world in their alliance had chosen to be there freely without threats or bribes or political pressure. They had proven that cooperation worked better than dominance, and now they had to prove that their way of doing things was worth defending. The final robot assault began with a massive wave of automated fighters that tried to overwhelm the organic defenses through sheer numbers. But the Allied fleet was ready. Human electronic warfare specialists had learned to turn the robots' coordination against them by feeding false data into their networks. When the robot fighters thought they were attacking weak points, they were actually flying into carefully prepared traps. The organic ships fought like a single organism, with each species contributing their unique abilities to the common defense. As the last robot ship exploded in a burst of metal and energy, General Seok Jin felt something he had not experienced since Earth left the Council. He felt hope for the galaxy's future. This victory proved that the human way of building alliances could work even against the greatest threats. The news of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than light speed. Communication networks could carry it. Worlds that had been preparing to surrender to the robot empire instead began sending messages to Earth, asking about alliance membership. The old Galaxy Council was finished, but something better was taking its place. Admiral Wu Jin floated in the observation deck of humanity's newest flagship, watching the most amazing construction project in galactic History unfolded before his eyes. Harmony Station was taking shape in the space between three star systems chosen. Specifically because it belonged to no single species, the massive structure would serve as headquarters for the Earth, alliance and symbol of everything they had accomplished together. Ships from over 50 different species worked side by side, welding metal beams and installing life support systems that could handle the needs of dozens of different forms of life. Human engineers worked alongside crystal being technicians, while tentacle people artists designed beautiful gardens that would make the station feel like home to everyone. 1 year had passed since the old galaxy council held its final session, and the transformation had been incredible. What started as Earth's withdrawal from galactic politics had become the foundation for something entirely new. The Earth Alliance included over 200 worlds and was growing every month with new membership requests arriving daily. Unlike the old council, the Alliance had no central government demanding tribute or limiting what member worlds could do. Instead, it operated as a network of mutual defense and trade agreements, with Earth serving as a neutral mediator when disputes arose between members. Every world kept its independence, but gained access to the combined knowledge and resources of the entire alliance. The difference in results was stunning. Projects that would have taken the old council decades to approve were completed in months. Representatives from 30 species were working together on the station, developing new medicines, cleaner energy sources, and faster ships. The research team shared information freely because everyone understood that helping others ultimately helped themselves. Communications Officer Dayun interrupted the admiral's thoughts with news that made him smile. Incoming message from the Hive world, sir. They are formally requesting membership in the Alliance and asking for help ending their war with the Mining Guild. War that had started everything was finally ending. Human mediators had found a solution that let both sides keep their pride while sharing the disputed asteroids. The Hive worlds would get exclusive rights to 3 asteroid clusters they considered sacred breeding grounds, while the Mining Guild received mining rights to the 5 largest metal-rich asteroids, plus a share of profits from all operations. It was the kind of creative compromise that would have been impossible under the old system, where every agreement required approval from hundreds of uninvolved parties who cared more about precedent than practical solutions. The new system let the people actually affected by problems work out solutions that made sense for their specific situations. President Sora, now in her second term, prepared to address the Alliance Assembly from Harmony Station's main conference hall. She looked out at representatives from species that had once called humans dangerous expansionists and felt proud of how far everyone had come together. She began her speech by reminding everyone that Earth had not left the galaxy to punish anyone or prove any points. They had left to show that there was a better way to organize galactic civilization, not through dominance or control, but through partnership and respect for each species' unique contributions to the common good. President explained that the Alliance worked because membership was voluntary and beneficial. Every world that joined did so because they saw advantages in cooperation, not because they were forced or threatened. Anyone who wanted to leave was free to go at any time, though. So far, no one had chosen to do so. She pointed to specific examples of Alliance success. The ocean people had developed new underwater cities using human engineering and crystal being mathematics. The forest people were growing food on previously barren worlds, using techniques shared by a dozen agricultural species. The ice people had solved their energy problems with fusion reactors designed by combined human and rock people engineering teams. Even the ancient robot empire had agreed to peace talks after facing united opposition for the first time in their existence. The robots had been programmed to conquer divided enemies, but they had no instructions for dealing with species that actually worked together effectively. The most surprising development was that several former Galaxy Council worlds were sending quiet diplomatic messages asking about trade agreements and defense partnerships. They had watched the Alliance's success with growing interest and were beginning to wonder if they had chosen the wrong side. Du-Hyen, now Earth's youngest ambassador, stood in the station's garden watching alien children play with human kids while their parents worked together on projects that would benefit everyone. The scene would have been impossible under the old system, where species were kept separate by fear and suspicion. He thought about his grandfather, who had dreamed of a peaceful galaxy where different species could work together as friends. His grandfather had believed that dream could come true through the Galaxy Council, but the Council had been too afraid of human success to make it work now. The dream was coming true in a completely different way. The Alliance had proven that cooperation worked better than control, and that species willing to trust each other would always be stronger than those who ruled through fear. The galaxy had learned an important lesson, but it had taken a crisis to teach it. The transformation was visible everywhere. Ambassador Du-Hyen looked. Harmony Station buzzed with activity as beings from dozens of worlds worked side by side on projects that would have been unthinkable under the old system. Trade ships from Alliance worlds moved freely through space, protected by mixed fleets that actually functioned as unified forces. Research teams were making breakthrough discoveries every month by combining the knowledge of multiple species. Medical advances that saved lives across the galaxy. New technologies that made space travel safer and more efficient. Agricultural techniques that could feed growing populations on marginal worlds. The Alliance had even solved problems that the old Council had given up on as impossible. The plague worlds that had been quarantined for centuries were finally getting effective treatment thanks to combined medical knowledge from 8 different species. The dead zone that had been considered too dangerous for exploration was being mapped by volunteer crews from Alliance worlds. Most importantly, the Alliance had proven that different species could work together without losing their individual identities. The Hive world still operated their collective society. The Crystal people still made decisions through mathematical logic, and the Bird people still refused to harm other flying creatures. But now these differences were seen as strengths rather than problems. The Alliance used each species' unique abilities to solve challenges that no single species could handle. Alone, diversity had become a source of power rather than a cause of conflict. As Ambassador Du-Hyen watched the children play in the garden, he realized his grandfather's dream had finally come true. The galaxy was peaceful, not because one species dominated all the others, but because different species had learned to see each other as partners rather than threats. The Earth Alliance had not conquered the galaxy. It had simply shown everyone a better way to live together. The old Galaxy Council had collapsed under the weight of its own fear and bureaucracy, but something far more beautiful had risen from its ashes. The universe was no longer spiraling into chaos because the species of the galaxy had learned that leaving broken systems behind was sometimes the first step toward creating something that actually worked together. They had built a civilization based on trust, cooperation, and mutual respect, and it was just the beginning.